Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of the Articulate Fly, and we're back with the first East Tennessee fishing report of 2023 with Ellis Ward. How you doing, Ellis?
I'm doing well, Marv. How are you?
As always, just trying to stay out of trouble, and it's been kind of funny as I've been checking back in with people in the new year. You know, we had this really bizarre weather pattern where it was close to zero in the southeast around Christmas, and now you could probably next few days probably put some suntan lotion on and get a tan, and then it's going to kind of drop back and cool off, but not quite to what we would expect in January in the south.
Yeah, it was unseasonably cold and quickly transitioning to unseasonably warm. It's going to be over 70 here today, so it changed temperatures of the water just being that cold, even though the tailwaters are insulated, that the zeros, the high winds, that's cold for us. And 70 is warm. So bugs follow that, and it will be an interesting next couple weeks.
Yeah. So what should folks expect to see on the water on the tailwaters in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, part of this time of year and why it's going to be an interesting next couple weeks, to touch on the weather component, which is not an annual thing, but just isolated to this warm front, it's going to be turning on the dry fly fishing. Moving, and that's just the substrate's warming up. They're going from, the water was chilled down to the low 40s because of the cold snap, and it's going to be getting warmer, and we'll be seeing the typical small stuff, but I suspect there's going to be enough of an increase in temperature to sort of override the seasonality, I guess I'll say, and you'll probably see some caddis and mayflies and other, sort of bizarre bugs. Not really hatches, but the midges and the blue wings will certainly be going wild coming up. So outside of that warm front, the seasonality component of these tailwaters is that once the spawn ends, which we're about there, or we've been there, depending on which fish are doing what. But when the spawn is ending, the fish redistribute from the tops of the rivers down to the bottom, and specifically the big lake run browns going back to the lake. And when that period of time coincides with precipitation upstream, so up in the reservoirs, to the point where we are getting healthy releases, it causes, we talked about the steelhead thing. Same with stripers and on the coast. It causes when that release happens, they ride that down. It's both easier for them, and then there's a lot of cover. The whole river becomes deeper and faster, but they'll stage up in between generation, and it's big fish that really aren't targeted with flies. And for a couple of weeks, and it's sort of the start date and end date are kind of TBD, but for a couple of weeks, starting pretty soon, ending a few weeks after that, you'll be able to get shots at some big lake run browns from the middle of the rivers down to the lake, to Boone Lake, and they will be willing to eat, I'll just say, big white flies, something fun to cast.
Yeah, got it. And I guess, if you're trying to fish that, do you kind of fish upstream till you find them, or do you just kind of guess and you kind of ride the pulses downstream, or if they're not generating, you just go find those deep pools and work those?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of guess. So I will, unless something about the conditions or, the timing of flows, if the generation is happening early in the day and I won't have an opportunity to fish early, then I'm going to be catching that generation down lower. If it's just a smaller window, generally speaking, most of the fishing pressure is somewhat limited to the middle and upper reaches, especially in the winter. So I like the middle down actually into the lake where it will be still water in a couple months is now moving river. And then throughout that section, again, just a lot of pressured pods of fish. So, in between the poking around with streamers, you can typically stop and find, groups of willing rainbows eating on top.
Yeah, very neat. And also, we were talking before we started recording. You've been working on the musky bug too.
Yeah, I've had the musky bug for a good couple of years now, and I've been fishing the French Broad and different pieces of the clinch near Melton Hill for the last 3 years. And in our interview now a couple months ago, I had said, it's probably something I'm going to be looking to start guiding next season. But I've had some clients, some trout streamer clients, when I'm talking about what I'm doing, expressing interest and taking a couple trips and had some had some magical moments and have a couple more trips coming up. So yeah, it's been, that part's been a lot of fun. It's even though it is streamer fishing in some respects, it's a different ball game. But the experience on the water, the gear, all that stuff has gotten tuned in, and I'm pretty excited to be running trips for those fish too.
Yeah, very cool. And you were telling me too that kind of with that pre-Christmas rain that we got, that you've got kind of slightly elevated flows with that, good amount of stain where you probably have, stained water with probably 5 to 6 feet of visibility. So, they can't see you quite as well, but you can see your fly pretty well. And that helps out a lot, right?
Yeah. And the fun part about that is when they get right next to the boat, it's pretty crystal clear in the shallower parts. So you can, you can see follows and you can watch your fly. And even when it's cloudy, you can, it's so much casting and so much retrieving. And I know we've talked about this with Blaine saying visualize what your fly is doing, specifically with the French Broad. You're really the casts aren't as long, the pools aren't as deep compared to the new. So in some respects it can be easier because you get your fly almost the whole time on a lot of these casts, and that's because it's shallower. It can be clearer, but it's shallower, and the casts are just a little shorter because it's not as big of a river. But yeah, the rain, that can, in the winter it can be low and clear, and it can be nice because that changes the tactic to hunt in some of those pools. But there's so many log jams in these little midstream sunken bushes and logs and trees that have collected leaves and sand. So they hold everywhere, even in that low and clear water. But right now with, it's not anything crazy, but just, tens of CFS, a couple dozen extra CFS in the smaller river. And this, the upstream gauge isn't a median of 150. And so when we're looking at 200, the pools are still there. You can still fish them because they're not getting, it's not moving. But it's a healthy flow, and you're not feeling as though you're on top of everything. Melton Hill's more or less the same. Tailwater environment. So any amount of precipitation that gets into the system and, in that reservoir that comes down from the banks and from little creeks just puts a little bit of that tinge, that limestone creek type tinge into the water. And it can make things a little easier.
Yeah, got it. And folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. You can email them to us. You can DM us on social media. If you like the Beastie Boys, you can put it on our Instagram story. And if we use your question, I'll send you some articulate fly swag. We're going to enter a drawing at the end of the season. Ellis has set up 2 days of guided fishing with him and a night at the Watauga River Lodge with Brownie. And before I let you go, Ellis, I know you've also got a bunch of bucktails you're getting ready to drop, right?
Yeah, the first wave of tails went pretty quickly, so we'll be doing another one here in the next few days, and it'll be some similar colors. A lot of natural colors, olives and tans and darker yellow type deals, and mostly on this one it's going to be a lot of just whites.
Yeah, got it. And I guess folks should watch the Instagram feed for Flyzotics?
Yes. Flyzotics is where I will be informing the masses as to when things will be released. And the purchase, you can get on to my website, elliswardflies.com. The fly time material link will have all of the bucktail available.
Very cool. And before I let you go, you want to let folks know where they can find you and book you and all that kind of good stuff?
Sure. You can, on Ellis Ward Flies, you can drop me a note there. Instagram at Ellis Ward Flies, always a good place to reach me. And then really the easiest is to text or call me at 513-543-0019. And if I don't answer, I'll give you a ring back soon.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, listen, folks, I hope the holiday season treated you well, and Happy New Year, everyone, and Happy New Year, Ellis.
Happy New Year, Marv. Thank you.